Welcome one, welcome all to the Hoffman Show Christmas Spectacular, the thing we call our radio show because our bosses are making us work on Christmas Eve. I'm Craig Hoffman, that is super producer Anthony Haney, and we're going to perform a magic trick for you today. We're going to squeeze two shows into one. Ooh! Yeah, that's right. We're going to start with the Vibe Check Tuesday. We're going to take your calls at 301-230-0980 on how you're feeling after the Commanders' pre-Christmas miracle against the Eagles. Then, slowly but surely, sometime after 5 o'clock, we're going to morph this into a Wednesday show, really the final hour, as we hit our Pick 6. We're also going to do Competition Wednesday at 6:30 today. It is a Pick 6 day because Dan Quinn and Jayden Daniels are speaking / have spoken. So we have so much to get to today. We also have a Jayden Daniels tape Tuesday at 5:30. So we're loaded up, Anthony. Are you ready to let Rudolph lead us through this 3-hour Christmas spectacular adventure?
I am indeed, Craig.
Also, as you may have noticed, Anthony playing a little Boys to Men Let It Snow to get us started. We are going to rejoin every single segment with some holiday music, so we get a little holiday festive cheer. If you would like any to submit any requests, go to Hoffman.sports on Instagram. I'll try to remember to check it in the breaks. Anthony and I have a nice list of Christmas music. Many of the requests that I've already gotten are on our list, but we'll take more. Anthony, what is your favorite Christmas song?
To be honest, I think it's Boys to Men Let It Snow.
The one you just played.
I think it is. I'm not sure yet. It's too many songs. You got. I mean, we're gonna play them throughout the show. So maybe my answer will change as the show goes on. But as it sits right now, Mr. Craig Hoffman, Boys to Men Let It Snow.
There is something about Christmas in Hollis by Run DMC that just is like, yeah, this is fun. Yeah. Like that's one, but there's like different kinds. Like, I mean, Nat King Cole has some classics. Like they're kind of that ilk. You know, there's kind of the happy, here comes Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus. There's like that ilk. Santa Claus is Coming to Town by Springsteen.
Too many renditions. You got the Jackson 5 of that as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's also so good. The reason I like the Springsteen one is because it's like it's got the big Springsteen like horn section going.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not like, my dad is like a super Springsteen fan because I'm 35 years old and my parents grew up in New York, and so of course my dad is. But like, I like Springsteen's music, but that song in particular is just spectacular. So any version, any song, hit us up. We got Range, we got Boys to Men, we got Springsteen, we got Run DMC. Yes, we will absolutely play Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the DMX version. Oh! That was a terrible idea. I'm afraid my voice is going to go if I do. Nah, we might warm up to it as the show goes. Point is, we're going to have some fun today. It was also very fun to go back. Got the big notepad, Anthony. Watch out. We got notes, film notes, because I've watched almost the entirety of the tape from the game. I watched the entire offense. I got the first half of the defense down. I know the second half of the defense is even better, and I have some absolutely mind-blowing numbers to back that up. Did you know, Anthony Haney, that on the first 7 carries of Saquon Barkley's day on Sunday, he rushed in 7 carries for 109 yards and 2 touchdowns?
That's it?
That's it.
Okay.
You probably knew that, though.
Yeah.
That's been floating around, and like, you watched the game. Did you know that on that 109 yards, that 99 of them came before contact?
God dang, nah.
They did not even touch him for 99 of those 109 yards. That changed from that point on.
Mm-hmm.
Carries 8 through whatever 8 through 29, I think was the final number, because he had 22 more. 22 plus 7 is 29. Let me carry the 1. Yeah. Final 22 carries. He had 41 yards. Of those 41 yards, on those 22 carries, he had -4 yards before contact. That's because they hit him behind the line of scrimmage on 13 of 22 carries. 59%. And I know you can't just be like, well, ignore the first 7. But like a 22 carry stint in a competitive game is like a full game. That would have been one of the best performances of the season. Had they just been mediocre on those first 7 carries against Barkley? They were obviously far worse than mediocre. But I do think that there's some real hope there of, hey, against Bijan Robinson this weekend, where Michael Penix is not exactly a run threat like Jalen Hurts was. Plus, they made some changes. They started to bring a safety down into the box more. They started to play with a heavier box consistently. That when they decide we're going to stop the run, they can do it. And I think against Bijan, it's super important to make sure that he doesn't get started because he is one of, like, there aren't a lot of backs in Saquon's ilk in terms of dangerous to score from anywhere. He's one of them. And so you can't let a 68-yarder up for the second week in a row. But if they can keep him in and turn Penix into a one-dimensional player in his second career start, his first against a real NFL defense, because with all due respect to the Giants, who played some decent ball earlier in the year defensively, wow, they are not good. I'm pretty excited to see what this team can be. And I'm not telling you that suddenly they're a Super Bowl favorite. We're going to do our NFL tiers later. I'm not telling you we should put them back in the prime contenders ilk, even though they're a 10-win team. They don't belong up there. They haven't been consistent enough. They haven't beaten enough good teams, whatever. But I think what we learned on Sunday, and as you watch the performance back, is one, this team has multiple ways to win. And two, their haymaker, if they land a couple big ones, is as heavy as anybody else's haymaker in the league. And I think that's what you saw. You see the absolute dynamite level that they can reach with the big plays, with Jayden, with Terry and Diami on the outside, all that stuff. And you see a defense that can lock it down for long, long stretches. And if those stretches come in the right order, you can really get a game flow that's pretty good. And they didn't even run the ball well at all on Saturday. They were a disaster. Or on Sunday. They were a disaster running the football. So if they can get that game going, look out. And there's definitely plenty of teams that are playoff bound in the NFC that I think they could have that kind of performance against.
Do you think the lack of our running game, literally the last 2 weeks, because against the Saints we struggle and then also against the Eagles, do you think that's problematic as we, inch closer to the end of the season and ultimately the playoffs?
I'll tell you what, Anthony, it's not ideal.
No.
But 3 games ago, 4 weeks ago, Tennessee, they did rush for 250.
No, we did.
So I think that this week there was a lot of Jalen Carter problems. This week was a lot of Philly is really, really good at what they do. They're the number one defense in the league, and you found a way to score 36 points against them. And by not being like the world's most efficient offense either. Like they were not necessarily crushing it down in, down out. They had some problems in protection at times. Jayden missed some throws. Like he missed some reads. Like they could have, it's one of those games that you watch and like could have been even more explosive if he throws that one and hits that one and throws that, like little stuff. But like often actually, I don't know how much more productive it really could have been outside of the turnovers because there's some times where like he'll miss first down, dang it. Second down, let's run it, garbage. Third down, Jayden just hit a big old something. So his ability to overcome those bad situations was truly, truly special on Sunday. And that's what I mean by they have different ways to win. Because against the Saints, it was the exact opposite. They didn't hit any of their big plays. They generated them. Like Terry's running wide open 3 times in the fourth quarter. Jayden misses him on all 3. They didn't get any of their explosives. I don't even know what their longest play was against the Saints. I could probably look it up real quick, but we're running up against the clock. But I don't feel like they had a 25-yard gain against the Saints. Against the Eagles, a defense that has not given up a ton of big explosive plays this year because their pass rush is so good that their corners, like you can see their corners at times being like, shouldn't the rush be home by now? Why is this dude still running? Oh, God, Diami's running past me. Oh, God, Terry's running past me. And they're able to do it. So finding those multiple ways to win, seeing the success with the big explosive plays, I think is really exciting and important. But if they can get going on the ground, then they become a nightmare to defend. An absolute nightmare because you just can't have bodies everywhere. I mean, that's the hard part about facing the Eagles. That became very much not hard when Kenny Pickett's in there. With Jalen, you have to defend passing downfield, passing in the short areas, best running back arguably in the league, and a quarterback run game. You can't. There's no scheme that does that. every scheme has its weakness. You're going to have to give up something, which is why most people are just like, I guess we'll try to make Jaylen beat us as a passer, but he's good enough that he can do that, especially when he has immense amounts of time. When the fact that he holds the ball forever isn't an issue because their O-line's so good. Kenny Pickett gets in there. Now it's like, we'll give you all day. Go ahead, throw it. You might throw it to us. And you see how instantly the script changes. And generating those big plays becomes harder, and they have to manufacture offense, and they're not able to do it in a sustainable way, and they can't score. They score field goals instead of touchdowns when they do move the ball, and that's enough to flip the outcome of a game. So it's exciting to me to watch how this team's playing right now. If they can put together one big performance on a weekday or a weekend in January, they definitely, I think, have what it takes. But how are you feeling after the Commanders' pre-Christmas miracle against the Eagles? 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980 is the phone number, and we're taking your calls on a Vibe Check Tuesday next. I kind of just want to let this play, Anthony.
I know I'm in my bag over here.
When the bridge gets, like, when you get there at the bridge and this thing just gets to the breakdown later in the song, it's just so good. I mean, this is class. Turn this back up.
Yes, sir.
I mean, first of all, there's an NFL tie here. Do you know who Bruce Springsteen's horn player was?
I do not.
Or saxophone player. His saxophone player, as heard right here, is the late, great Clarence Clemons.
Oh, wow.
Who, before he was the saxophonist in the E Street Band for Bruce Springsteen, was, I believe, an NFL football player with the New York Jets, if I'm remembering correctly. Here we go. Clarence Clemons, Virginia guy, born in 1942 in Norfolk County, Virginia, later the city of Chesapeake, who it better be good for that's him. The son of the fish market owner, Clarence Clemons Sr., and his wife, Thelma. He was the oldest of their 3 children. He started playing sax when he was 9, started as an alto, switched to a tenor sax, played in his high school jazz band. As a youth, he also showed potential as a football player and attended Maryland State College on both music and football scholarships. He played as a lineman on the same team as Art Shell and attracted the attention of the Browns, who offered him a trial. He also tried out for the Cowboys. However, the day before, he was involved in a serious car accident, which effectively ended any plans of playing in the NFL. So I don't know where I got the Jets thing from, outside of I was just probably making Springsteen, New Jersey connections. But, yeah, he was like an NFL caliber football player before this car wreck. And then just life decided he was going to be a musician. And he was in the E Street Band from the 1960s. Basically, until he died in 2011. So there you go. They met for the first time in September 1971, he and Springsteen.
Wow.
So there's your
new, man.
Christmas song, saxophone, musical, football crossover. Perhaps not the only football crossover we're going to have in our holiday music today. There you go. It's a Hoffman show. A show with a little bit of everything here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Anthony, the call screener is not seemingly working on my side of things over here. So is there anybody that's called in yet?
We have a couple people.
Okay.
And I think you're really going to like one.
Okay.
Because Marvin is back.
Oh, well. Let's see. Is that? Oh, there we go. Okay, I got it now. Let's go to Marvin. Marvin, you get us started on a Vibe Check Tuesday on the Hoffman Show. How you feeling, Marvin? Happy holidays.
I think I got to pull him up.
Oh, okay. Hold on, Marvin. Don't go anywhere. All right, Anthony, you attempt to bring up Marvin. All right, Marvin, we got you now.
Yeah, I'm here. Are you there?
Yeah, I've been here the whole time, and you've probably been there the whole time, too. We were just in different theirs. But now we got the technology figured out. Marvin, happy holidays.
Hey, Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas to you. It's nice to be back. I'm just so happy my squad is doing so well. Can I call them my squad? Well, who cares? Doesn't make any difference. Hey, look, I'm very optimistic. I'm very, very optimistic. We picked the right quarterback. That's evident. I think we got the right coach. That's pretty evident. I just like the way he relates to his team. I thought that was a great hire in the first place. And
did you, Marvin?
Yes.
We disagreed perhaps on some Adam Peters selections, perhaps. Was that where we...
Yeah, I think the Ben Sinnott thing, we're still all... Boy, we can talk about that. You want to talk about that? Because we can still talk about how you traded with the Eagles, they got Cooper DeJean, and that's still not sitting well with me. And we got Ben Sinnott for that, and I'm like, well, we're not even using him this year. I hope he's going to be our replacement for Zach Ertz in the future. I hope that works out. But trading inside the division is dicey. It's always going to be dicey. And to me, you should like have an extra surcharge if you trade. Hey, look, you got to give us an extra pick we're going to let you trade up to get the player that you want. That's how I feel. But we did get him on the Dotson trade. So, Jahan Dotson has been a complete bust.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think Jalen Hurts knows that he has more than 2 receivers. Zacchaeus was there a couple years ago as a wide receiver 3. Did absolutely squadoosh. There were, I think, 40 passes thrown by Eagles quarterbacks on Sunday, and 38 of them or something like that went to, maybe it wasn't that many, but it was all but 2 targets went to Smith and Brown. And the other 2, one went to Barkley, one went to Gainwell.
Yeah, and I love Adam Peters because, honestly, to me, he got it right with Brandon Cole. That was the one I was worried about. That was the one I was truly worried about because I was like, he reminds me of a guard. But even if I think he's not a left tackle, he'll be a great right tackle if we had to get somebody again. I just think he's better than I thought. So I'm glad I'm not the GM because I'd have been wrong on him. But,
Marvin, Marvin, I love you. Your energy's great. I think a lot of people that listen are glad you're not the GM.
Nah, you're funny.
I try to be. Hey, Marvin, it's we all have our opinions, and it's always a lot of fun to talk about them. But I love the enthusiasm and like truly to be able to go like I think something that is genuinely I'm gonna get 10% too serious for a second, which is I think something that's gotten lost in a lot of modern sports fandom is like we're all so invested in our own takes that we forget to sit back and enjoy the ride. And the fact that you can just be like, I don't care whether I was right or wrong on Brandon Coleman or this guy or that guy. I'm loving my team right now, and that's the headline. I love that, and I wish more people had it that way.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. But I will say this.
Oh, boy, here we go.
I will scrutinize this man forever. I will scrutinize everybody because I'm so invested. I am invested, but I'm enjoying the ride. So thank you.
I love that. I love that for you, Marvin. Merry Christmas. Have a happy New Year, and appreciate you calling in. All right, let's go to and Anthony. Remember, you gotta run the phones here. Let's go to John in Fort Washington. John, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and how you feeling on a Vibe Check Tuesday?
Hey, Craig, how you doing, man? I'm feeling great. Picking back on what that last caller said, I mean, if you look at Adam Peters' draft, I mean, all of those guys are pretty much contributing. I mean, it has to grade out as an A draft. Of course. Jayden Daniels is going to make it, an A draft to begin with. But all of those guys are contributing. My question to you, Craig, is that if Jonathan Allen is able to make it back this weekend, do you think they should play all 3 of those, Payne, Newton, and Allen on the line at the same time? Because it seems like when we give up those big runs, it's on Farrell's side. Armstrong is good against the run. How do you feel about that?
I've been actually thinking about this a lot today because I watched the defense today, and watching some of the packages they've used recently is really interesting and makes me wonder what they're going to do with John, because I do think some of their best like base run, I shouldn't say base because that implies that there's like 3 linebackers behind them, but like some of their regular line groupings against the run on first and second down involve Sheldon Day and Carl Davis. And that's wild, but those dudes are just bigger bodies who are willing to fight their butts off to split double teams and like do the dirty work. And John can do that. Duran can do that. Jerzon is struggling with that as a rookie, and hopefully will get better at it over time. Duran that's certainly not his specialty, and I would say John, it's not his specialty either. So how do you then mix it up and get these guys in great positions? Well, what they do sometimes with Duran is they'll have a bunch of pass rushers. We're talking like Armstrong, Luvu, Dante Fowler, and Payne on the field, and they'll like let Luvu line up at D tackle, and then Payne's playing edge, and like they'll mix it around and just throw linemen for a loop. And I think they can mix John into some of those packages where his juice as a pass rusher gets maximized because he's on some tackle that's not used to, having to block a guy like John Allen. And I do think that there's potential opportunity to use him on the edge a little bit and keep like a Sheldon Day on the field on a first and second down situation because he's a good enough pass rusher that you're not toast there, but he can probably set a pretty good edge. So I don't know that that's going to happen. I think had he been healthy the whole season, they might have had more time to experiment more. He probably just lines up in his usual position and plays football. But I do wonder, if a couple of weeks here, by the time the playoffs roll around, if there's some different exciting packages that they can use him in, or some different roles that we haven't seen him in previously in his career that help maximize, and a 3D tackle package with those three guys and kind of a 3-4 look with Luvu and Armstrong on the outside and in an odd front with 5 across. Like, that's definitely on the table.
Okay. That's all I really had, Craig, man. I want to wish you and Anthony, a Merry Christmas, man. And we definitely, we're definitely on the up. It's seeing the RFK Stadium, resolution thing done. I think, we a good draft, a good off season. I think we should, compete for years to come. So I want to thank you, man, and I appreciate listening to your show.
Hey, John, I really appreciate that. Merry Christmas to you as well. Thanks so much for calling in. Vibe Check Tuesday here on the Hoffman Show, 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. More of your calls in just a moment, but also want to tell you that coming up at 5:15, since John mentioned it, when the news broke on Saturday about the RFK thing, we didn't even talk about that yesterday. Like, something we've been covering for 10 years had resolution on Saturday, really late Friday night / early Saturday morning. And we didn't even talk about it yesterday because how wild the game was. But I was able to chat with Meagan Flynn, one of the reporters who's been covering this for the Washington Post, about how the Commanders and D.C. kind of pulled off this miracle and where we go from here. So Meagan Flynn, we're going to let you hear that interview at 5:15 from Breaking News Mode on Saturday, but still super relevant today. Mitch Tischler, 5 o'clock. Jayden Daniels Film Breakdown with Logan at 5:30. But more of your calls for the rest of this hour at 301-230-0980 on a Vibe Check Tuesday on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Wishing you and yours a happy holiday season, a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, a Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you're celebrating. Just being happy because it's December and everyone's in a good mood because nobody's actually working except for us. Celebrating that. Just feeling good. I love it. Anthony, I hate the cold. So there's part of me that hates this time of year. And January's miserable. These 2 weeks are the best. Because everyone's just happy. Everyone's got the spirit. If you're a jerk to someone, I want you to go to therapy. Because if you're mean to someone in these 2 weeks, Christmas week and New Year's week, you need help. And I don't say that in a judging way. I say that in an authentic, like, I want you to feel this happiness too kind of way. I think I saved myself from being actually the jerk that I was describing.
I second your thoughts, though.
Okay, thank you. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday here on the Team 980, 301-230-0980. It's also a Tischler Tuesday. We'll talk to Mitchell coming up at 5 o'clock. Let's keep it rolling with the calls, though, at 301-230-0980. Let's go to Noel in Chicago. It's appropriate. I'm sure, Noel, I'm sure you get this all the time, but, getting a Noel on Christmas, this feels very appropriate.
I think so. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for that. And I'm happy to be calling you right now. And hey, man, early Merry Christmas to you and your family. And thank you for doing the work and you and Anthony doing work right now, right before Christmas Eve. Props to you guys for that, first of all. So
thank you. How you feeling about the Commanders, Noel?
I mean, I feel thrilled, man. I feel thrilled about the victory over the Eagles. And I got to give a shout out to our wideouts because I was really, really blown away by the efforts of Olamide Zaccheaus, who obviously had 2 touchdowns. Jamison Crowder, man, you were talking about it yesterday, but good grief. Like, he's been around for so long, and he's been somewhat connected to the then Redskins and now Commanders. I'm so happy for him. And then I think with Luke, I think watching the Eagles game, it was the first time where I felt like we actually have something with him where you could see the talent. It's obviously not been, realized yet as far as how Cliff wants to utilize him more regularly as far as in our offensive sets. But I really think that Luke's got something, and hopefully we can figure that out. But I really am happy with what the wideouts did on Sunday, and hopefully we can keep it going against Atlanta. So.
Yeah, Noel, thanks for the call. And I'm glad you brought up the receivers because I think you brought up a couple things or jogged my mind on a couple things that I wanted to talk about. So first, before I let you go, Merry Christmas. Thanks as always for your calls. Really appreciate you listening. Thanks, dude. It's Noel in Chicago with us. And we got a couple phone lines open too, 301-230-0980. But on the receivers, I kind of chuckle sometimes when we get social media posts, YouTube comments, whatever, about – oh, they got to get this guy more involved, this guy more involved, this guy more involved. Why? The Commanders' offense is one of the absolute best in the NFL by basically every statistical measure. They are one of the best yardage teams. They are one of the best scoring teams. And are they doing it in a way that's necessarily the most consistent or the most explosive? No. But if your team is, let's see, they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th in total yards. If we go by points, they are 4th, averaging 28.8 per game. Last time I checked, and they're good at the, all the EPA per play, their success rates are pretty high. There's a whole lot of stuff that you can go to advanced metric-wise. But, ultimately, the point is to score of offense, and they are 4th in the NFL at nearly 30 points a game. And you're like, they got to get Diami more involved. They got to get this guy more involved. They got to get that guy more involved. No, they don't. Keep doing what you're doing. What you're doing is great. What? More? No. Just more of the same because you're scoring consistently. And are there certain games where you maybe perhaps like to see a little bit more of this or that? Of course. I mean, but really, the Saints game, they only scored 21, and they really struggled in the second. Yeah, they did. You want to know why? Because Jayden missed 3 wide-open touchdowns to Terry McLaurin. You hit one of those, and we're not having this discussion. They're right on their 28-point scoring average. He hits 2 of the 3. Then we're talking about another 30-plus point game, and they're probably at this point averaging over 30 a game. And so I think that we have to be realistic about, hey, these wide receivers are playing pretty well considering their talent levels, and they're finding really good ways to use them. But also, because the passing volume has been limited, they're a much heavier run team than other teams in the NFL. There are limited opportunities. And because there's, they've mixed and matched these guys in certain games, they're still discovering, oh, wow, Luke can do that because Luke hasn't had the opportunities. That's fine. They didn't need to give him the opportunities. They've scored plenty without him. But what happens when you do? Oh, we find out this. Okay, well, I guarantee you over the next 2 weeks, we're going to see more Luke McCaffrey screens. Once they figured out Diami was good at that, they started throwing him like 2 to 3 a game. They'll get Luke on some of those. They'll find different ways to use him out of the backfield probably to replace some more of the Austin Eckler touches that have disappeared from this offense and the style of touches that those were. So they'll find ways, and I think I liked Noel's call so much because for Luke, that kickoff return stuff was really a chance to see his talent in a way that we haven't. And I think that now that you see that and they see that, then there's more likely going to be ways that it shows up in other aspects outside of kick return in the near future. And maybe they do a little bit the next couple of weeks and then unload a couple of big ones in a playoff game. But we will obviously see how that goes and figure that out or figure that out when they show it to us because that is something that they control. 301-230-0980. We've got a couple of phone lines open, and then we also have a couple of calls on hold. If you're on hold right now, stay there. I'm going to get to you next. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. I mean, just how can you not be in a great mood with Christmas and Hollis playing? Some people can't be trusted with requests, though.
No.
I was on with my guy DH on his show on YouTube earlier this afternoon, Ant. And he responded to, I put on Instagram like one of the question boxes, what songs you want us to play? Guess what DH put?
What did he say?
Folio out here on Instagram. Grandma got run over by a reindeer.
Hey, yo. He took that time to play because he wasn't serious.
No.
Couldn't have been serious.
But if you know DH, he ain't serious.
Oh, okay. I guess it's very on brand.
Very, very on brand. I love DH. He's a funny guy. He's called into the show before, but he also has like podcasts and everything. He's a very, very funny guy. It's actually perfectly DH. DH, that's your show. Your show is Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer. Our show occasionally is also Grandma Got Run Over by, you know what? That's fair. That's fair. That is, something that we would do. We're not going to today, Anthony. Don't get any ideas. No.
Not yet.
Not yet. All right, let's get back to the phones on a Vibe Check Tuesday on the Hoffman Show. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Vic in Accokeek. Vic, thanks for calling. Happy holidays. Merry everything. How you feeling about the Commanders?
Happy holidays to you too, Craig. I hope all is well with you and the family and Anthony in there too. I feel good. What I saw on Sunday, which I'm pretty sure everybody saw, whether they understood what they were looking at or not, Jayden Daniels proved that he has the ability to be an elite quarterback. Not that he's just a good quarterback or a very good quarterback. He has the ability to be an elite quarterback. He proved that pre-snap, during the play, that he can throw people open with his eye. He can manipulate defenses in tight windows with a variation of what a defense is sitting at. We see that the Eagles, because of the number one defense, they squeeze a lot of it. They squeeze windows, whether they're in man, whether their linebackers are dropping in coverage and where there's a backer in the front of an intermediate pass, safety over top, or a corner squeezing it to the boundary, or even sometimes the safety squeezing it on the hash. But he was able to put balls in those windows, particularly on the game-winning touchdown, that you don't see a lot of rookie quarterbacks being able to do. Not only that, he was very poised. He understood what he was looking at. He understood where he wanted to throw the ball. He put the ball on the needle with the touchdowns he did throw and areas where only his receivers could get it. And those are the signs, in addition to keeping his eyes downfield and using his feet when he needed to. Those are signs. Those are visual signs, dynamic signs of an elite quarterback play. Now, we would have to see the body work over time. But with that being said, if we don't have a quarterback that can do that, we're not 10-5 right now. We may be a little under that, or somewhere hovering around just over 500, or maybe at 500. But his ability to play elite in December has put us where we are. And I'll leave with this. I'm not saying that Terry McLaurin is Terrell Owens, but at this point of Terry McLaurin's career and Terrell Owens' career, Terry McLaurin has more receiving yards. He does not have more touchdowns. Terrell's got him by like 50 touchdowns almost, but he has more receiving yards. So I feel good about that.
That's a hell of a stat, Vic. Thanks for the call, dude. Appreciate it. Have a happy holiday. Yeah, I mean, Jayden, the thing that I appreciate about Jayden that I see really in this win streak is he's got every club in the bag. And he's going to get better at hitting certain clubs over time because he's a rookie, and of course he is. He's already really good. But he can bend the ball around a tree. He can hit the shot from the middle of the fairway, uphill, downhill. Like he can hit them all. That's the end of my golf analogies. I'm not the world's biggest golf guy, but like whacked it around a couple times. Point is, like, when you can do everything, you can win with your legs, you can win with your arm from the pocket, you are perfectly happy being a complementary piece. You are a guy who can drive winning in big moments and make explosive plays, and you're just super highly coachable on which one you need right now. Like, that is really, really special. And that is what Jayden is. And that's what the best are. Lamar, Pat. I mean, that's what makes Mahomes like the best, is because he always seems to know in the moment what he needs to do. Like, oh, I need to run here. I need to pass here. I need to just be happy checking the ball down. I need to take shots down the field. So that's what Jayden, I think, is proven these last couple of weeks, is he's done it different ways. And yeah, that's how you win in December, specifically when it's quarterback driven in the way that it's going to be for Washington, hopefully for the next decade to come. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Keith. Keith, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Gentlemen, first of all, happy holidays.
You as well, Keith. Thank you.
For you and your family. I am super excited. I after almost 40 years of suffering through this, it feels great to be at this time of the season in December playing meaningful football. Nobody expected us to be in this position. At the beginning of the season, I said we were going to win 9 to 10 games, and my core crew laughed at me. But now I'm smiling really, really big. But I just wanted to say a couple things real quick. It is amazing that at this point, barring a missed extra point, we could have 3 miracle comebacks in one season, which is unheard of. I mean, what is he like? 4 touchdowns in the last 10 seconds this season for games, which is an insane stat. So I'm happy. I'm optimistic about the future more so. I mean, I'm not saying we'll win the Super Bowl this year. We definitely need some help on our offensive line. And the one thing I'll say is this: up until last week, I've been lamenting the whereabouts of Jamison Crowder. I'm like, why is nobody talking about Jamison Crowder? He's like when we talk about our receiving core and trying to get Terry some help, like nobody ever mentioned him. Well, he's been vindicated. I'm happy to see him again. That's my guy from his previous time. So I'll stop and let you guys comment on that. Thank you.
Yeah, Keith, thanks for the call. And next time you have a prediction that's going to come true, can you tell us what the lottery numbers are? Why are you being selfish in the holiday season, Keith? Appreciate it, man. Thanks as always for calling, and thanks for listening. And well wishes to you and yours as well. The Crowder thing's funny because Jamison actually hasn't been activated that long. It's been just a couple of weeks because he was on IR most of the year. And, he wasn't hurt for a long time. He was hurt at the beginning of the season. They put him on IR, and they just didn't really have a space for him. They didn't have a need for him. And Noah was playing pretty well. OZ was doing his thing, especially early in the year. And it's just a roster spot thing. Like Luke had his role, even if it was a lot smaller, but he's playing on special teams. And so you just don't really have a spot for him. Well, then Noah goes down. KJ Osborne isn't ready yet. You have the roster spot. They had already planned on activating him, I think, anyway, because I think they had kind of gotten to the point even before Noah where they were like, we might want this guy to give us a very specific set of traits that he has for the rest of the season. And that specific set of traits is exactly how they use him. Hey, we need quick wins. He's not going to have a ton of 20-yard gains. That's just not who Jamison Crowder is as a receiver, especially now, but it's not really ever who he's been. He's one of these rare guys that is super bursty and quick, and it's not even quick. He's just precise. He's small. He's got a low center of gravity, and he cuts really cleanly. So he gets in and out of his breaks in a very, very efficient manner. But he runs he was like a 4.6 guy. So his downfield vertical speed is just not very elite. But his short area quickness is really high level, and thus hey, we need you to win on a slant right now. Okay, cool, got that. Hey, we need you to hit the brakes hard on a comeback. Okay, got that. Hey, we need you to quickly get up the field. His first 10's really good. So if you're, first and goal from the 10 with 10 seconds to go, getting him on a route where he's just got to get to the end zone quickly, more than fastly, if you will, he's your guy. And they've done a really good job of leveraging his exact skill set for that, not to mention what he's given them on punt return, a little bit more than Zacchaeus had given them. And then, obviously, we saw what Luke gave on kick return. So definitely all love for me from Jamison, but also a lot of love to the staff for figuring out the correct way to use him and make sure that you're maximizing the skill set that's there and not putting him in situations where he's just going to, run let's go put him on a bunch of vertical routes against who? He's not beating those guys. But, hey, let's get them on a choice route in a 2nd and 10 to get us to a 3rd and 3. Like, Jameson can absolutely be your guy. All right, last but not least, let's go to our guy Ford in Florida. Ford, thanks for calling. Vibe Check Tuesday, wrap us up. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas.
Craig, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. How you guys feeling?
Feeling good, man. How you feeling about the Commanders on Vibe Check Tuesday?
Blessed.
Been super excited for this team. We found our quarterback. That was one of the main objectives at the beginning of the year. And then I haven't felt this way since Bobby Beathard and Jack Van Cook were running the show. So you got to remember, I go back to having season tickets from 77 to 94. And it's been a while, man. It's been a wild ride. And as a side note there, I'm super excited about the RFK situation, hopefully moving forward, considering I went to over 120 games there as a diehard fan. I wanted to do two things real quick, Craig. A shout-out and to kind of get a little reaction out of you about next year with your late nights. I wanted to say a shout-out to Lance Newmark. I think Lance Newmark and the rest of Adam's staff have done an excellent job, not only in the offseason, but throughout the season, like KJ Osborne, Lattimore, all the kickers, et cetera. So I don't know that Lance gets enough credit there. I wanted to shout him out, and then wanted to tease you a little bit about next year's schedule. I know you're having an issue with Sunday Night Football being late.
I'm screwed, Ford.
I know you are. You think about who we're playing. We have the NFC North, and we have the AFC West. So you got the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Lions, the Vikings. I mean, we're going to be on prime time all over the place, buddy. But anyway, I just wanted to. I'll hang up and
Ford,
let you respond.
You couldn't
to
save that one till after the holidays? You had to do that to me on the night the night before Christmas or the night before Hanukkah here. I'm gonna need the oil to burn a little longer if you catch my drift.
Yeah.
Ford, no, I think that's a great call. Really appreciate it. Thanks, and always appreciate your support of the show. Man, Anthony, he's 100% right. This team was gonna be on primetime at like basically the maximum amount because of Jayden next year anyway. If they've got the NFC North and the AFC West, you're definitely getting Commanders Chiefs in prime time. You're probably getting Commanders Chargers in prime time. You're probably getting Commanders Packers and or Vikings and or Lions in prime time.
Good gracious.
That doesn't count the fact that the Cowboys and the Eagles are in the division. Oh.
I guess it's a good place to be, but at the same token,
It's
that
an
schedule.
look, these are literally champagne problems. But for someone who doesn't really do some of those are going to be on the road, but some of those we're gonna be at the stadium pretty late. Anthony is, I guess, what we're saying.
Looking forward to it.
But hey, good ball, we'll take it. By the way, we still need your tailgate information for Sunday. For those that would like Anthony and I to come crash your tailgate, we'll come and eat your food, but also we'll say hi. We'll chat ball. We'll throw a football around. We won't necessarily eat your food. If you offer us food, we'll eat it. We're not going to come and pillage. We're not savages. We're fine, distinguished gentlemen. And by the way, speaking of fine, distinguished gentlemen, good shout by Ford on Lance Newmark. And there's probably a bunch of other dudes on that staff who deserve a lot more credit. And, Adam gets all the shine because that's what being a GM is. But you certainly are going to have a lot of guys that have, whether it's a good eye for certain things or knowledge of the practice squad here, we want to make sure we keep an eye on this guy. Like, they've been prepared for everything. And that's what it means to be in this league and at the absolute highest levels at the front office, and they've absolutely knocked it out of the park. All right, when we get back, Mitch Tishler joins us for a Tishler Tuesday here on the Team 980. Excellent pull, Anthony. Oh, Anthony's in his bag today. Gotta love it. Happy holidays, everybody. It's the Hoffman Show, hour number 2. We are happy to be with you. It's a fun day to do the show, especially because they won. Imagine how different things would feel had Sunday gone differently, Anthony. I don't think we'd feel so holiday cheery.
You don't think so?
No. But you know what would still be fun? Talking to Mitch Tischler, because that's always fun.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in. Not my beat.
Mitch Tischler on a Tischler Tuesday, joining us for his usual hit. Mitchell, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I am doing well. Happy Hanukkah to you.
Happy holidays to everybody. How about that?
Happy Merry everything. So Sunday happened. Man, there is so much to get into. Let me start here with you because we spend so much time talking about Jayden because of the big plays and the spectacular things he does, the unprecedented nature of his moxie and everything as a rookie. After the first 7 carries, which were terrible for the Commanders' defense, they allowed Saquon Barkley 41 yards on 22 carries. They hit him behind the line of scrimmage 13 of 22 times. How do you think that they made that adjustment, and how much of that is what they did versus whatever factor Jalen Hurts' absence played?
I mean, obviously a big portion of that is Jalen Hurts being out. But I've been just so impressed this season with everything that Joe Witt has done. You see him trying to find the pieces that work in different situations with this defense. And I'm talking kind of big picture from the start of the season until today. But this weekend against Philly, the changes that he made to that defense after that first kind of quarter and change of time. And yeah, part of it is the fact that you're going against Kenny Pickett, but you can only play against the guys who are in front of you. And if Kenny Pickett had gone out there and picked apart this defense and, given them a ton of points, I think we would have been speaking differently. But you saw a lot of those early runs were to the left side of the Eagles offense, the right side of the Commanders defense. And I think you saw them kind of tamp down on that right side, and ultimately you saw Joe Witt and bring a bunch of those kind of cluster blitzes where you throw too many blitzers at an offensive line where they can't block all those guys, and ultimately you're able to do that because Kenny Pickett is the quarterback. But let's be honest, we've watched Commanders, Washington football, Redskins defenses for years not make in-game adjustments, and the fact that they were able to do that and hold Philly to the amount of, to the lack of offense that they were for the last kind of 2.5 quarters of that game is super impressive. And, this season is obviously still very much alive, and there's a lot of things that this team is looking forward to. But, man, big picture, I am so excited about having Joe Witt running this defense as we go forward.
I totally agree, and I think he's just continued to get better. And I think, earlier in the year, I think we talked about this, like you and I, but I know we talked about it, big picture, we on the show, that Joe's a first-time coordinator, and it was going to take some mistakes on his part to learn certain things because he had just never done the play-calling thing and been in charge of a defense with live bullets flying. And I think some of the mistakes he makes early, and again, that's not to criticize Joe, it's to acknowledge the human nature of how hard it is to be an NFL defensive coordinator, and that coaches can get better too. And I think the fact that he, like so many pieces of this team, Mitch, have gotten better this quickly is so exciting to think about what they can continue to be moving forward when they can just continue to innovate, they can continue to try new things, and they also learn more about themselves each and every, forget every season, like every game, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, listen, having Marshawn Lattimore out there is a massive upgrade and change for this defense. And, I think the fact that they were able to do some of the things that they did with him in terms of leaving him one-on-one with A.J. Brown as much as they did, frees up a lot of the rest of that defense to do other things. And, I don't know if you guys have talked about Richard Sherman on his podcast going through a couple of the PI calls that Lattimore got and kind of the nature of how tough it is to be a DB in the NFL doing that. But, I think that, you saw early in the season players in position to make plays. You saw them get their hands on the ball, on outbreaking passes or over the middle, and they just kind of quite weren't able to, to pull in those interceptions. And that's something that we've seen Dan Quinn and Joe Witt talk about since the beginning of the season, the importance of that. And I think part of that is, just kind of total talent level on defense is only at a certain level. You're only able to upgrade so many positions, and bringing in Marshawn Lattimore is a pretty big upgrade over there at corner. And I expect that kind of his influence on the rest of the defense we'll be able to see it kind of radiate throughout the defense, and hopefully, Mikey Sainristil can continue to play at the level that he's playing and continue to get better. But man, the ingenuity, the different ways that Joe Witt attacks offenses is just kind of different than what we've seen, particularly over the last 4 years or so, and when Jack Del Rio was running it. It's something that fans should be excited about. And I think we'll continue to see this defense improve, not just the last 2 weeks of this season as we get into the playoff season, but also as we start looking down the road in the next, 1, 2, 3 years or so.
Mitch Tischler, co-host of the Beltway Football Podcast, with us here on the Hoffman Show. Mitch, I'm going to ask you a question that Anthony asked me earlier, which is, what's your concern level on the running game being so unproductive outside of Jayden Daniels the last 2 weeks?
I mean, I think there's good reason for there to be concern. I mean, Jayden Daniels just passed Brian Robinson for most rushing yards to lead the team in rushing yards this season. But I hate to have this be the theme, but just as I was impressed with the in-game changes that Joe Witt was able to do, you have to be impressed with the in-game changes that Cliff Kingsbury brought to the table, because you saw when they came out from halftime, they recognized they weren't able to run the ball. And yes, that's a concern. And yes, that's something that needs to get fixed. That's something that, I think they can get to. But I love seeing this offense come out and play, 4 and 5 wide, no tight ends, running backs motioning out of the backfield, put the Eagles on their heels. And when you have a quarterback like Jayden Daniels that you can trust to both get the offensive line into the right protection, but also understand that he's a guy who can beat a free blitzer himself, you're able to get creative like that and do those things. But to get back to the run game, I think early in the season there was a lot of misdirection, a lot of confusion with how they were pulling offensive linemen and, opposite of the direction of the play, and teams, I think, struggled with that a little bit. And I think teams have kind of recognized that that's a big part of their run game is the misdirection. And, if you're pulling a guard and if you're running to the right side and you're pulling a guard, your right guard and right tackle to the left, and teams aren't going to flow with that motion, you're going to have a tough time running the ball, because that's 2 less blockers you have, leading that play. And so I think there needs to be a little more. I think the running game was super creative early, but now you need to get to mix in a little bit more of the basics, mix in a little bit more of the lead, the guard pulls, the leads, the edge rushes that they had success with early in the season, and start working in that as opposed to relying on misdirection to trick teams into being able to run the ball.
I think it's a really, really great point. The other element of the running game that's missing is Austin Eckler, and they had some very specific things that Austin was very good at, even if it wasn't their base, like first and second down runs. Do you think that there's a chance we see Luke McCaffrey on any of the Austin Eckler package, even if it's more of the screen stuff than the running back stuff, considering what he's shown in the kick return game and the excitement that was in Dan Quinn's voice yesterday and when DQ was talking about Luke and what they saw in the kick return game?
Certainly in the kick return game, yes. If you rewind 2 weeks to the goal line play when Cam Jordan gets a free run at Jayden Daniels on the goal line there, that was because of a Luke McCaffrey missed assignment, I guess I would say, in part. But I think that you're seeing the importance of a player like Noah Brown, who's able to be, to be gritty in the run game at a wide receiver. And I think that's a big part of it. Hopefully when KJ Osborne is able to get going for this team, he's able to pick up a little bit of that grit. I think Luke McCaffrey we see him get open week after week after week on the field. I mean, he had 3 passes thrown to him, and, 2 of them were turned into interceptions, but 2 of them were bad throws by Jayden Daniels, and not Luke's fault, that the interception happened, especially that big play over the middle. I mean, if Jayden gets that ball down, just over the linebacker, but in front of the safety to Luke, that's going for 25, 30 yards. I think that he's a little bit at this point in his career as a wide receiver, I think he's a little bit more skilled in the route running game as opposed to being a physical blocker. Not necessarily because he doesn't want to do it. I just don't think he quite has the skill, hasn't quite figured out, as a player at his size, how to be effective blocking, linebackers or other defensive players in the run game.
Yeah, I'm just curious if like some of the orbit motion stuff they're using Zacchaeus on, if that becomes Luke, because like the screen he ran last week was great. Ozzy had a hell of a block on it too, but just to get him in space, I think is intriguing as opposed to asking him to do the route running and all that kind of stuff. But we'll see. They've got 2 weeks to play with it. Obviously, they need to win one of these games to get in. Sunday Night Football up next. Mitchell, see you Sunday night in Landover.
Sounds good. I'm excited for it. I'll just say real quick, I don't know that Luke is that much more explosive than OZ in those motion packages, but it is going to be interesting to see how they parse out some of those spatial passes as we go forward.
Yeah, definitely. All right, man. Have a great holiday. Enjoy it. We're listening to you and JP on the Beltway Football Show, and I'll see you Sunday night at Northwest Stadium.
You do the same, bud. Thanks.
All right, that's Mitch Tischler with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, Meagan Flynn of the Washington Post on how the Commanders pulled off their other miracle this weekend, getting RFK Stadium out of federal control and into the hands of Washington, D.C. Meagan Flynn, Washington. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Sleigh bells, jing, jing, jingling. And Saturday night we got, or really Saturday morning, like 1 a.m. Saturday morning. Friday night we got one hell of a surprise that most of us woke up to on Saturday actual morning. RFK Stadium, the provision that had been taken out of the government spending bill had been passed by unanimous consent in the Senate, and we were all of a sudden in, oh my God, the Commanders could wind up in D.C. after all. I was able to chat on Saturday on the heels of that news with Meagan Flynn of the Washington Post, who's been covering this for years, and it was a really great conversation because of how crazy the game was. We didn't get a chance to play it for you yesterday, so didn't want you to miss out. By the way, this is why you subscribe to Craig Hoffman on YouTube, at Craig Hoffman on YouTube, at the Team 980 on YouTube, because we did this live. So this was a lot of fun, but wanted to let you hear here on the radio the chat with Meagan on the miracle before the on-field miracle for the Commanders this weekend. Meagan Flynn, Washington Post, with us to talk about, I mean, I know your colleague, my friend Sam Fortier, called it a Hail Mary. We can call it a miracle. We can call it whatever we want, anything in that realm, that the RFK site now belongs to D.C. thanks to some late-night maneuvering in Congress. And, Meagan, I mean, we thought this thing was dead. We thought it was alive earlier in the week, that it was dead. Now it's not only alive, like it's through. What the heck happened between the time that the full spending bill got spiked and this provision was removed and whatever time in the morning it was last night that this thing passed by unanimous consent in the Senate?
Yeah, it was a really remarkable development considering everyone's operating belief the whole week was that this spending bill was the last avenue for the RFK bill to pass Congress. When it was included in the spending bill, the belief was this is happening. The spending bill was needed to avert a government shutdown, and some version of it had to pass. Once RFK was removed, everyone thought, well, I guess there's not going to be an RFK bill. But the Senate came through with unanimous consent, which is a mechanism that no one really considered before because a single objection is enough to kill a bill on unanimous consent. Considering we knew that Maryland senators did not like the RFK bill, there were also some Republican critics, chiefly Mike Lee of Utah. And so unanimous consent was just really not even seen as a viable path, assuming a single one of those senators would just raise their hand and say, no, I object. But somehow, between yesterday and very early this morning, they were not opposed. And we are actively working right now to figure out how that happened. It's really remarkable. And, I think as we reported today, a couple things were really important here. One, Maryland, which has been really a key player in all the negotiations on RFK because they have a big interest in not losing the Commanders to DC. They wanted a few things. One, assurance of what would happen to Northwest Stadium should the Commanders leave. They did get an MOU on that. They also wanted, very critically for their state, full federal funding to rebuild the Baltimore Bridge, the Francis Scott Key Bridge, right. Which they got in the spending bill. Lastly, they wanted DC's National Guard fighter jets. That was not in the spending bill that we saw, but we heard yesterday that there were some productive negotiations late into the night where they were seeking assurances that they could find another way to get the jets, which were reportedly told they have gotten those assurances. So all of this came together very quickly, and about 1:15 a.m. the bill passed on unanimous consent.
So just to give our mostly sports audience some context here, what else, like how many other things got passed in this way? Because there was a number of things that got stripped out of the funding bill that ultimately, like the version that gets passed to avoid a government shutdown. Was there a bunch of stuff that then wound up getting standalone votes and passing or not? Or was this kind of a one-off situation that this was important to enough people that it got done?
Yeah, it certainly was not necessarily a one-off, and it's really quite separate from, things in the spending bill, with the exception of, once the jets were out, Maryland also wanted to find another way to figure out how to get their fighter jets. But this process is typically reserved for uncontroversial bills that no one will object to. And that's exactly why this was on no one's radar for RFK.
We're talking about like naming a post office.
Yeah, things like, unanimous consent. Everyone cool with this? Like, yes, sounds good. Right. And so, there were some other bills that went up for unanimous consent that I wasn't tracking terribly closely. Certainly none as high profile as the RFK bill.
And we know that this also had to pass the House on their side of it. Was this something that had already been passed by the House and was kind of in Chuck Schumer's hands, or James Comer, who's the head of the Oversight Committee, which oversees the federal government's oversight of D.C. as well as just general oversight, but D.C. governance in Congress is kind of, for the audience, like in that committee. He's a Republican from Kentucky. His argument is that we're maintaining this 190-acre land. It's costing us millions and millions of dollars. He wanted the RFK bill, and he and Mayor Bowser had actually been advocates for this together to get done. So was there a final push from Comer on the House side, or was this always in Chuck Schumer's hands? And eventually he was like, wait, I think we can do this.
Absolutely. James Comer, from what I've been told, has been very involved behind the scenes and advocating for this. He was the chief. He led the bill. He introduced the bill. He played a role in getting other Republicans to support it. And he had been pushing for this up till the very end. That said, yes, Chuck Schumer, he ultimately is who brought it to the floor to go up for a vote. And his position in all of this, from when the negotiations really started heating up, was that he wanted to see Maryland reach an agreement with the team. He didn't want to be stuck choosing between them, essentially, on what to do. And so in this case, it does seem like those parties worked out an agreement, and therefore Chuck Schumer brought it to the floor.
Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader from New York, which is where the NFL offices are located. Do we know if Roger Goodell or Josh Harris or anybody involved on the team side or the NFL side perhaps gave Chuck a late night call being like, hey, man, can you put this up for a vote before you get out of there?
Not that I've been told, but I know obviously that in their reactions, they were very excited to see this pass.
So then we have the D.C. part of this. This is finally in D.C.'s hands, which is where it should be, but that does not mean that there's a 100% chance that a stadium gets built there. What's the state of play within the district right now and the chances that a stadium gets approved, and how much of that depends on the funding side of it? Like if Josh Harris raised his hand and was like, I'll pay for it, me and my many partners worth many billions of dollars, versus, hey, we need a little bit here, or we need at least certain commitments. Like what's the state of play in DC?
Yeah, I mean, I think the DC Council would be very happy to hear Josh Harris say that, although I don't know.
Of course.
There's really been no specifics discussed about what a potential deal could look like between the city and the Commanders. That said, if it does involve public funds, it will have to go through the DC Council, where lawmakers have been split on the issue of whether to use taxpayer money to fund a football stadium. There are some different strokes of that. Some lawmakers say, okay, we can use taxpayer funds, but just for the infrastructure around the stadium to kind of help build it, but not the stadium itself. So there's different variations of those positions. But they're not quite at like a majority, at least publicly, or if anything's changed for the past year or so, it's not quite been a clear, strong majority. But there's certainly, a lot of council members, namely Kenyon McDuffie, who's really supportive. He oversees the Economic Development Committee, who are very supportive of a stadium. And so certainly it's going to be a huge topic of debate on the DC Council.
So when Glenn Ivey, the congressman from Maryland who represents the district where Northwest Stadium currently resides, was on with my colleagues Grant and Danny the other day, he had some details that I had not heard that were fairly specific about where the stadium could go on the current land in Landover. He's like, if we move it here, it's more accessible to the metro, and this other metro stop actually becomes better. There seem to be some concrete plans. I think I heard you say this, but just to clarify, double click, as far as you know, there's actually no concrete plans. There's no drawings. Mayor Bowser and some architect hired by the Commanders haven't had any kind of meetings where we actually know what this, she said, stadium, multi-purpose, whatever. Is there actually plans for what that could look like?
Not that's been publicly released in any great detail. There's certainly been discussions. I think she's recently said on another radio show that, you know, maybe we should have a retractable roof so that you can do more things year round. But no like clear renderings, but definitely lots of ideas. The mayor has frequently talked about wanting to see like a mixed development. So, you know, restaurants, retail, hotels, entertainment options for people so that it's not just parking lot football stadium, which is what it is right now, essentially.
Yeah, parking lot, stadium, and I mean, I guess greenery. It's not wasteland.
Yes, and absolutely, there's actually requirements in the bill for green space. So we're not going to lose, you know, the access to the Anacostia River or trail or anything like that. That's really supposed to be enhanced under the legislation.
And just to clarify as well, there's also a stipulation that there's no federal funding for stadium, because that was obviously thrown around in a very misinformed kind of way the other day. But there's no federal funding, no federal tax dollars that will go to a Commander Stadium, or really at this point anything else in this bill, right?
That's right. Contrary to false information that was circulating on Wednesday and amplified by Elon Musk, there is no taxpayer money involved in this RFK legislation. And in fact, yes, it does prohibit the use of federal funds for a football stadium.
So if there is any public funds, it will be those of us that live in the district that will pay for it.
That's right.
Okay. We'll deal with that within DC, but that's the point. Is it's our call, as it is for jurisdictions around the country. Okay, Maryland is going to make their pitch. We talked to your colleague, Aaron Cox, about that the other day, who covers Maryland very closely. What kind of timeline do you think between Maryland and D.C. and Virginia, you know, if there's another Hail Mary to be had here, Commander season's full of them, if they want to get back involved, what kind of timeline is realistic for negotiations, things getting through city council, real proposals sitting on Josh Harris's desk for he and his team to decide we want to go here or there?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, I don't think this is going to move like lightning fast. But I think everyone who has been wanting to see DC formally enter the negotiations, that at least, I'm sure that those phone calls will be quick to at least kickstart things. As for seeing like a deal emerge or a decision between Maryland or DC, I think that really is quite unknown about like how fast or slow that may materialize.
And I don't know if you know this from previous stadiums, whether it be, you know, Capital One Arena back in the day. Obviously, there's just the, you know, different version of Capital One Arena with the renovations, or Nats Park. But is this something, I guess I'm trying to, I know we don't have specifics, but a window of by the end of 2025, could this decision be made? Or are we talking a decision being made in 2027 when the Commanders would already, you know, forget having started construction, like they're going to have to extend their lease because they have to play through 2027 as is, but their hope is to be in by 2030. If they don't start construction until 2027 because they haven't made a decision, like that's getting pushed way out. So from when DC in the past, city council has had to rule on these things, do we have any idea how long it's taken, what the precedent is here?
That's a great question. I mean, it could take months on the council.
But months is not years. Months, considering we've been waiting for this for a decade, like months, we can wait months. We could do that, Meagan.
Yeah, I think really, you know, this will proceed in multiple stages. One is going to be DC and Maryland putting forth proposals, talking to the team, you know, kind of envisioning what's possible. There's really no telling how long that could take. Then there's going to be internally with the team is going to have to make a decision about what to do, what they want, what makes the most sense. And then we'll see more public debate if there is a deal on whether to move forward with it. And if it's in DC, what kind of taxpayer funds are involved, if at all.
Is there a chance that it's like a ballot measure? Yeah. Is it like something that we might be voting on as district residents next November? Or is it something that's going to be decided by the council? Like we've already voted for the council members, they decide for us versus a ballot measure.
I mean, I wouldn't put it out of the question. It's really just hard to to say.
Okay, but that's a possibility. There's a chance that we might. Okay,
it's not impossible.
Okay, just trying to understand here.
Yeah, lots of possibilities. Really, it's going to be quite a road.
Which is crazy because 24 hours ago, we thought all the possibilities were over, and it was congratulations, Maryland, Landover 2.0.
And let's all preface this with the the bill still has to be signed by the president. I guess that's the most immediate next step. Just to throw that out there.
All right, Joe. We need your signature one more time on one more thing before you're done. Meagan, anything else that the audience, Commanders fans that are interested in this should know, or have we covered all the ground here as we know it right now at 1:30 on Saturday, pending any other news that you guys report?
No, I think you've covered it.
All right. That's it then. Meagan Flynn, Washington Post. She, Aaron Cox, Sam Fortier, and their team are working on this. So make sure you stay tuned over at WashingtonPost.com/sports for all the latest updates. Meagan, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
All right, that was my chat Saturday with Meagan Flynn. We get back to the football. Jayden Daniels film review, Tape Tuesday time on the Hoffman Show. Meagan Flynn, Washington. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, and it is the most wonderful time of the year for Commanders fans because there's actually meaningful football being played, and so much of it is because of Jayden Daniels. And this week's Jayden Daniels excellence was definitely different than last week's Jayden Daniels excellence. We broke it down on Take Command.
With the second pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Washington Commanders select Jayden Daniels.
Jayden Daniels holds the keys to the Commanders' future.
Daniels is going to walk it in for the touchdown.
Jake Command holds the keys to knowing how he played.
In the big moment when you needed to make plays, he just consistently made plays.
It's time for a Take Command Tape Tuesday.
Jayden Daniels just lays it out there perfectly. What a throw.
On the Hoffman Show.
This one was for the fans, not the nerds.
Yeah.
Like this,
yeah.
This one was like, give me the highlight plays. Give me I can pound my chest, look at my quarterback, making magic. You don't need an advanced understanding of football to understand how Jayden Daniels was great in this game. If you have that quarterback nerd eye for it and you're watching the All-22, then yeah, he struggled at times in this game, and the down-to-down stuff was way harder. But of course it was. They were facing the number one defense in the NFL, and you have to – and like I think I said this on Friday on the radio show. Jayden was going to have need to have arguably the best performance of his career, because he was going to have to do the type of stuff that he did against Alabama when he was at LSU, or against Florida when he was at LSU, to win this game, where he was going to have to make spectacular plays, because simply just getting the 4 yards taking what the defense gives you against the Eagles, they don't give you enough. They don't give you enough that you can play winning football. You have to go take stuff. And so if you do miss, I mean, even the first drive of the game, he misses that out to OZ. He's facing a little bit of pressure. He's a touch late on that dig to Crowder, and that's enough because the Eagles' defense is all over it, right? Against a lot of other corners, that ball is fine the way it is, but it's a PBU. He has to check it down on 3rd and 10. They're short. They go for it.
That's one thing. I'm sorry to cut you off, Craig. I did like that. I did like that there were a couple opportunities where he was getting pressure. They did a great job covering the deeper stuff. And we talked about that from the New Orleans game as an area where it's like, hey, man, hit the check down here. And he did that, I want to say, 2 or 3 times in this game, and it led to near first downs or first downs. And I thought, that, again, like the way he managed, maybe that's a way to characterize it. The way he managed the pocket in this game was significantly better than he did versus New Orleans. But again, the windows were so much tighter, and the air in the secondary was significantly less. And I think that's kind of what we're talking. And I think I love the way you said that with the fans. It was for the fans, not the nerds, because the nerd in me loves the pocket management, loves the getting the ball out, loves the check down stuff. But the other stuff was challenging. And I keep going with what you were talking about, but I just had to interject there real quick.
No, I think that's a great point, because there was stuff for the nerds too, and I'll get to some stats that kind of back that up in a second. But just kind of running through the first, 4 drives. One of them doesn't count because it's a 1-play drive where B-Rob has his first fumble. But on 4th and 1 on the opening drive, they stuff the zone read. He gives it. He probably should keep that one, but Sweat plays it really, really well. Yeah. Like Sweat does a good job of muddying the read. And he gives it, and he probably should have just pulled it and taken his chances. And I mean, I do wonder if
either way,
I wonder if later in the game he pulls a couple that he maybe should have given, because he's like, I'm not leaving the ball and the chance is in anyone else's hands.
Yeah, and again, like that was a really tough down. You know, I that's probably been one of the more consistent runs on 3rd down for this team, or fourth and short. Again, because it's effective, right? You're giving your best player an option. You're putting the defense in conflict. But you know, Jordan Davis does a great job on the front side of that run, just absolutely murdering a double team. Nakobe Dean plays to the backside, so you get Sweat and you get Dean on the front side of that run, you know, to the read side of Jayden. So I'm like, yeah, you probably want to hand that off. So again, they just did a really good job playing that. And you know, they're good. They're the best defense in football for a reason. And it shows up in situations like that for sure.
Drive 2, Jalen Carter's a monster. Okay, that's the end of drive 2. Drive 3.
Is that the fumble?
Run that's the fumble. Yeah, they run like an RPO bubble out, I think it's to Diami. Terry misses a block, -2. Next play, they go empty. He's late to OZ. This one's nearly a pick 6. That's not good.
Actually,
he's late. He's off platform.
So actually, I don't know if he was. I think in the context of the read, this is again where you're splitting hairs. I do agree that I think he's off platform. So I think usually if his platform's good, and there's a little bit of pressure here too. Like I think that's important to acknowledge. He gets a little bit of pressure, but if he's able to square his feet like he normally is and deliver that, I think that ball gets there with plenty of time.
So but the read's on time, the throw is late because of the lack of velocity.
Yes, that's and I think and again so that's one where I like the dig to Crowder. I like this, and I like actually the one that he overthrows in terms of process. But again, like this is where you see the special of Philadelphia's defense. And I'm really glad you're going through these plays like this because it's just reminded me of all these notes that I had. It's like those are the right decisions, but because there's pressure on one, I can't get to a base on one. I'm a little bit late because of how they rallied to the corner on the dig, and I got to get back to the corner, and I got to get back to the dig. Like those are all right decisions, but it just didn't execute well because again, the windows are small, the pressure's a little bit higher, and the leverage is a little bit more. And I think that's a good articulation of kind of what we're feeling from the first half of this game.
And that was a simulated pressure on that one too. They only sent 4, but they're able to drop guys out.
Get the overload, right?
I think Dean comes free, if I'm remembering correctly. Next place, 3rd and 12. They run like a double post with a deep cross coming over the top. The Eagles just are all over it. Really nice job by their defense. He scrambles for no yards.
On that one, I was like, oh man, maybe they could hit the cross. But then you see Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, like I'm like, you know what I mean? Like it's tough.
Yeah.
Like it's a good defense, man, and it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch that side of the ball for them.
Well, especially on like a 3rd and 12, you know they're going to be in that like match quarters. Like they're going to have dudes deep, or at least a cover 3, if not having 4 guys deep, and so they've got that all locked down. Then this is where they start to save the game, really, because they get the Luvu pick. They come back, they get Terry involved, which I always think is a great thing to do. They run this little orbit motion. It's like an orbit RPO screen, and Jayden throws the screen. But it again shows like the importance of Terry and finding energy in the game. And they talk about that all the time. Like, let's get Terry a touch. And it's like decently blocked, but then Terry just like runs through a guy and turns like a 4-yard gain into an 8-yard gain and just carries a guy for 4 yards.
And also, like, again, like you're bringing up all these notes, like that was a really nice wrinkle by Cliff on that kind of 3-by-1, 3 to the tight end nub away, because like the way that Philly played that, I was surprised. They kept 3 over 3 and 2 in the box, probably because of the zone read element of the quarterback. But you had hats, you know, and the guy, the third element's like at 12 yards. And so I thought like that's a really good wrinkle by Cliff to get Jayden some easy touches. And, you know, you talked about how Ben Sinnott misses that block on the first one, and you're like, man, if you make this block, this is an explosive play. And so I love that from a schematic standpoint that Cliff found that. But again, the execution on some of them earlier was a little bit lacking. This is the first one that you really saw executed well. I think it was a 12-yard gain. Is that right?
8-yard gain.
8-yard gain
on that one. So now you're in. Or maybe it was bigger because it's 1st and 10. Oh no, there was 1st and 5 because there was an offsides or something on the before the drive even started. So it's 1st and 5. You get 8 yards. Now it's 1st and 10 again. They run a little play action, and then there's the super soft. Jayden gets hit a little bit late, roughing. So you kind of get away with one there. The next play.
And I'm glad, that's another great point by you too, though. That happened twice in this game, right? Like where
it happened twice on. Was it this drive? No, it was just once on this drive, but it happens.
But it happens
twice later,
yeah.
Where Jalen Carter just pushes Cosmi. And the thing is, like, it's a little push. Some people were like, "Oh, Cosmi's flopping." I don't think Sam flops. Sam will flop. He's very, very good at it. But this one, I don't think he flops. He just trips. Like Carter's almost unlucky because Sam's standing right in front of the pile. Carter gives him enough that he like goes to step back. He falls over, and the ref's like, no, we're not doing this. We're not having any fights in our game today. I'm not getting yelled at by the league. And so he throws the flag. And, you know, we can talk about this a little bit more when we zoom out from Jayden and go to the offense as a whole. But like the dudes that Philly lost in this game mattered. Jalen Carter goes down in this game. Slay goes down for a period in this game. Gardner-Johnson gets ejected from the game. Like Philly started
Jordan Davis
with certain, Jordan Davis goes down. Like, they just kept losing dudes on top of losing their minds for short periods. So next play, Cosmi completely whiffs, and speaking of him slips. They never get a double team, no gain run. Yikes. They then run that orbit motion reverse deal where OZ's coming around and then reverses field at the snap, and Jayden misses him there. I think DeJean probably greets him before it's a touchdown, but still, that's an open, easy throw that Jayden just flat out misses. And then they have the beautiful design on 3rd down for the kind of the fake screen slip where he hits Crowder. So that's the first 4 drives of the game. And we've really, until that throw to Crowder, which is wide open, we got really zero big-time throws, zero good throws from Jayden, a couple of misses. Some of it's pressure, some of it's this, some of it's that. But it definitely took him a while to get going, but they did enough ultimately as this thing continues to go to overcome that.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think that perfectly encapsulates the first half of the game and a little bit of the third quarter. There just wasn't. It was hard. It was hard for the offense. It was hard for Jayden. And I think this brings us to like maybe your larger point, or something we talked about in the production meeting is like they hit the explosive to Diami, right? Because even on the personal foul to Cosme, like that's the drive that B-Rob fumbles down in the low red, right? That's how that drive ends, right? They don't even get points off of it. But they get the explosive to Diami, which is crazy. And it's so interesting because like when I was watching them, I was like, if you can extend the play a little bit and get this ball behind them, they are very conscious of using their rust. They reminded me a little bit of like Dallas when they play man coverage. They're kind of like, they're capped. So they get to like 12 yards and you can tell the DBs are like, they're going to, the ball has to be out because I know the rush is going to get there. And I think one of the things that stuck out to me, you see it on the Diami big play, you see it on the Terry big play, is Jayden's throwing with like normal timing. It's not like he's extending the play, but he buys time with the ball in the air. Like he puts a ton of air under it, puts it out on the outside. And so you get the illusion of extending the down, but the throw is so good in terms of the deep ball down the field. And you're able to get behind the defense in a defense where in a defensive structure, which on paper shouldn't work, but because they're so aware of what their rush brings, it's the same thing with the Quinyon Mitchell, Terry McLaurin, when Terry scores that touchdown over his shoulder. Quinyon is thinking dig or comeback. You can tell 100%. Terry does a great job with the stem, kind of making that a thing, but you can just tell that's what they want to do. And then a great job because they're like, the rush will get there. They can't throw the deep ball. They can't throw the deep ball. They can't throw the deep ball. They're on the Terry one specifically, they're bringing pressure. There's an unblocked rusher because of how they've had to squeeze the protection. Ball's up high, and Terry makes a great adjustment. And so, like, literally, they just kind of like broke the Philadelphia defense with great ball trajectory and two guys making plays down the field for him. And like that's the first sign of like offense for the Commanders, sustained offense in this game. Because again, like you were saying, the touchdown, the Crowder touchdown, comes off of the Frankie Louvu interception. So they only had to go like 25 yards for the score. And this is the first time you're like, okay, they've got a little bit of juice, they got a little bit of life. And again, Jayden makes that great 4th and 4 conversion on that in that sequence. But like that was to me like, okay, like not a lot's going on, and then all of a sudden 2 big ones, and then it was a little bit quiet, and then he found some more explosive opportunities.
Well, ironically, the drive after the touchdown is one of their best drives of the game, and then B-Rob fumbles it at the end of it. It's the drive that loops into the second quarter. And actually, on the first play of that drive, I actually thought he could have thrown deep to Diami. Diami's kind of even with the corner, and he also, I thought, had Ertz on a deep comeback, but he just feels like the clock is running out and winds up scrambling for 9 yards. And that's one of those like, okay, like, sure, we'll take a 9-yard gain. And then there's some RPO stuff. There's a really nice check down in the middle of that drive to B-Rob. There's my favorite play of the game. They ran a QB trap instead of a QB draw where you kind of fake and everyone looks like they're pass setting, and then you try to run past the defense as they flow up field. They were like, no, we're going to take it to, and it was on a 3rd and 7. And the reason I like it so much too is because they were trapping, it was Carter with Allegretti coming across, then Biotis just clean released up to the second level. And so on a play where you need to get a 7-yard gain, you need to obviously have a block at the second level. And Biotis was able to go straight to Nakobe Dean. Jayden, there's no hesitation. As soon as he sets HUD, it's almost like as he's catching the snap, he's going forward. And they nail it, get that first down. And I mean, even the direct snap, like that's a cool design. And it's really funny to watch. B-Rob does like this token fake to Jayden, and 3 dudes go to Jayden. Yeah. And then he fumbles it. So you have some cool stuff from Cliff. Eventually they get going. They kind of lull again a little bit later. They have also two turnovers in 3 plays from the pick that he overthrows, which is a good decision. Bad throw to Luke at the end of the first half, and then 2 plays later, 2 plays in the second half, that play by Zach Bond to force the fumble on Diami was absolutely ridiculous. That is
Zach
a hell of a play.
Bond, he's a Philly guy. He's excellent, man. He's a lot of fun to watch.
I almost feel bad that he gave up the TD to Crowder late because that dude had a hell of a game otherwise.
Yeah,
like he was unbelievable.
Him and Nakobe Dean both. I mean, Nakobe Dean as a run player is really dynamic, but Bond, his ability to cover grass underneath, and we talked about that on the preview show. It just makes the defense work, you know. And so, he's special, man. And the fact that they got him on a, you know, basically like a league minimum deal for the position is like, or a special teams contract. I think he's making like $3 million this year is pretty wild. So,
yeah. Well, he never played the position before. He was an outside, like he was a bad pass rusher, like outside linebacker type. And they're like, we think you can play inside linebacker. And he sure as you know what can. But back to just kind of, I think the larger point here, and to say very nice things about Jayden, like the plays he makes with his legs in this game on the 4th and 11, where he runs for 30 yards and has his kind of RG3, let's make defenders run into each other moment. The RG3 Mike Vick special, if you will. You know, there's that. On the 2-minute drive to win the game, the move he puts on Jalen Carter on the QB draw. I mean, that goes from what, a -5 to, or like a no gain to like a +9 or something like that. And then there's actually like one more hidden play in there with it's 27 seconds to go, right? They run an RPO and Jayden's looking to the right and he pulls it to throw it, but none of the receivers are actually looking for the ball. And so whoever was supposed to run the bubble, the whatever route they were supposed to, the screen, whatever they were supposed to run, they missed the call. And Jayden goes, uh-oh. But he goes, uh-oh, quickly enough that instead of it being a -5, he scrambles forward and gets 2 yards on a 2nd and 3. It's now 3rd and 1 instead of 3rd and 8. They run B-Rob, spike the ball, next play is the touchdown. So I think that to me is the biggest thing if we're going to talk about Jayden, and just the headline and the lead, the first paragraph is all Jayden Daniels made plays when it mattered. And that ultimately overrides everything else that happened to this offense in the game.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to talk about the game because it comes down to these special, like, kind of very unique, magical kind of moments. You know, it's the completion to Diami, the completion to Terry, the 4th and 4 conversion that bridges those 2 plays, right? Which is again special, right? It's the 4th and 11. I mean, that was an incredible play. You know, just like mind-boggling play. Like, first off, the courage by Dan to go for it there is just tremendous, and then the confidence in Jayden to get that done and get that executed is special because there isn't really a lot of spot to go with the football. And you know that was the one we were talking about the postgame show with the dig right before. Like, I love the aggressive mindset on the dig because like that's the kind of tight window you're going to see there in terms of the quarters match. But again, to make
for
that
those that
play,
don't remember, it's the dig to Terry where the ball bounces up in the air and is almost picked, and then the next play is the 4th and 11. Yeah,
and so again, like I like the process. I like how he saw it. And again, like we didn't make all the throws we needed to, but when it was time, like the stuff he did do was special, you know, and it ultimately leads to the win. Like even the one to OZ, like it's a broken play. You got to get to that guy. But it's really like, if you think about it, it's 4 explosive plays that lead to points. And like, that's the game, right? I mean, I'm trying to think if there's something I'm forgetting there, but like, that's the ball game. It's 4 explosives that he cultivates and he creates. And then obviously the last 2-minute drive, which is a little bit more consistent from him in terms of completions and finding opportunities. But it's what he did as a runner. It's what he did as a competitor. And it doesn't show up on a stat sheet. You know, I was listening to the 33rd Team's podcast, Check the Mic, yesterday. And one of the things they were like is, you know, Bryce Young played better than Jayden Daniels. And on a down-to-down, throw-for-throw basis, you probably have an argument that might be true. But in terms of the leveraged moments and the big plays, there's no way that that's a valid argument, right? There's no way that you could say that because, again, like football is not just, your completion percentage and all, you know, sack percentage and all that kind of stuff. There's a playmaking element to it. And when you look at that element, which no one, I don't care how good PFF feels their quarterback metric is, like you can't quantify that. And that's the thing that I think really jumped out to me. There's one thing I do want to talk about that's kind of a negative, and this is important to touch on, is he throws the pick, the second pick, and you think the ball game is over. It probably should be over.
If Devontae Smith catches a ball, he catches 99 times out of 100, it's over.
And so that's something that I think needs to be like at least acknowledged, is that he had that should have been the drive to win the game. But you gave Philly a chance to close it out. They don't do it. And then, again, you do it with the second opportunity, but I would rather not give him two bites at the apple there. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and also he threw his other pick is at the end of the first half.
Yeah.
And so, for as great as he was in, fourth down, like that situational stuff, like
and third down, I think 3 of his touchdowns came on third down, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 8, 3rd and whatever. So, like, he did a third down, great job. And like you're saying, the fourth down stuff was great, but end of game and end of half,
big moments, and he's been money in most of those this year. But you can't force it, and that's really. I mean, the first one is not a force. The first one is just a bad throw, and you just got.
It's the right read, and again, like that. That's something that comes out of this game is like I felt like the throws that he did make when he did get there, they were the right. It was the right mentality, and again, there's a little bit of pressure, all those things, throws a little bit off, and. That's kind of something that we saw. Again, we've seen it a couple of times versus better defenses where it's just a little off. And again, you got to give credit to the defense, but that's something that I want again now to kind of see improve. Because again, every week we've talked about it. No matter what you give him, he seems to get better. And I think he got better in this game from last week in terms of taking sacks and handling pressure and trying to make tight window throws. But there was a little bit of an accuracy issue. And so it's like, how do we keep growing that in the context of a win and looking to improve and kind of as a supplement to all the special stuff that he did.
One last number to cap off the Jayden discussion. And I don't have this in front of me, so I'm just going to have to rely on remembering it from listening to Mays on the Athletic Football Show yesterday when I was listening to their game recap. But the EPA per drop back number versus the EPA per attempt number. Typically, EPA per attempt. So how many times when you drop back, you actually throw the football? That number is going to be higher than EPA per drop back because, like, what drop backs happen when you don't throw the football? Sacks. Well, he only had 1 sack in this game, and on a couple of dropbacks, he winds up scrambling for major yardage. So his EPA, the one that Mays had yesterday, I think it said EPA per dropback was like 0.31, EPA per attempt 0.13. So every time, like that difference is completely explained by the fact that he took only 1 sack in the game, and on a number of dropbacks where he doesn't get the ball off, he creates massively positive plays that help move the Commanders towards points. And so that ability to eliminate the negative, in fact, turn negative into positive, is why he is so ridiculously special. And then once you continue to become more efficient as a passer, that's how you become the Lamar Jackson, the Josh Allen, the best, the Patrick Mahomes, the best of the best, which is certainly the trajectory that we hope that he's on in the long term.
And I think just to kind of clarify that point that you're making is we've seen him be a very efficient passer, right? We've seen him be absolutely excellent and dialed in. And, so that's in his game. That's a club that he's got. But again, finding maybe a different way to win, I think is another thing that he brings. And that's why his skill set is kind of the archetype for the position now in the NFL. You need a guy that can move around, that's hyper accurate, that super smart. And so when it's not hitting from a pass game standpoint, we can find opportunities throwing the football or running the football, excuse me. And I think that's what you saw is it just was a little bit different. It was a little bit more high leverage. Again, we talked about the explosive plays and how it's hard to live and die by explosive plays because the completion percentage on those tends to be so low and that can kill your offense. But you hit on a couple of those, you make some plays with your legs, you don't take any sacks, and this is the result. And again, you and I both think Jayden Daniels did a great job in this game. I think we're just trying to give some context about how this is a little bit different and how there are some areas where you're like, hey, this could be better. And I think that's the thing is Dan, I talked to Dan yesterday briefly about it, and he was also like, yeah, Jayden's going to be hard on himself. There's areas for him to improve, and he knows that. And I think that's another thing that makes him such a unique player is that he is so, for how young he is, he's so motivated to find every opportunity to be the best version of himself. And so I think, again, we think he's good, but there are areas for improvement after this game.
Yeah, it's like if, a basketball player who's not like a streaky 3-point shooter. Like but tradition, like game in, game out is really good. Driving the ball, like they're going to score 25 just about every game. Like today, the drives weren't as good. They weren't as efficient. A couple of turnovers on some stuff you usually hit, dribbling the ball off your foot, but you hit 6 threes. And so you just got your 25 points anyway. And then there's also going to be games where you do both, where you hit 6 threes, 8 threes, and hit your stuff, and you're going to have a 50-point game. Jayden's got some of those in his bag and in his future as well.
Want more from Craig and Logan? Subscribe now on the free.
No meanness, no Grinchness here. Just the biggest Commanders storylines of the day. Let's get it going. We only got 50 minutes left in our Christmas spectacular. It is time for a pick six. Oh, we already did it. That's Mr. Grinch. Oh, Anthony.
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
Just let it ride.
It is caught! Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
We set out to find a leader, someone who could take this franchise to the next level, build an elite team that consistently competes for championships.
All right, let's roll into our pick 6 at 6. And I loved something that Dan talked about today, in part because it's something that I've talked about quite a bit, and it was cool to hear him say it.
Number 1.
Dan talked about the competitiveness of Cliff Kingsbury, and he was asked specifically what stood out / what has stood out about working with Cliff this season. They're first together, obviously.
Coming in, I knew, kind of the background of Cliff, and, we'd known each other from a football perspective. I think I fully found out what a competitor he is. Like that, I think, is at the core of really who he is, because he comes across in a quiet demeanor externally, but this is a really driven person. And so that part of the competitive nature, like you see it sometimes in his play calling, there's some like a good anger to it at times. And so I think I found out like this is a real competitor. And so loves to attack, as we would know, but he gets full support, and I appreciate that. So I learned, I didn't think it wasn't going to happen, but I did learn that. For somebody that sat in the chair, he's got, perspective to see things and, give insights. And so I appreciate that about him for sure.
I think it's cool for Dan to share that Cliff still does think about like the full team and the head coaching side of it. But the biggest thing when he talks about the competitiveness, there are just times in games where the Commanders' offense has been in a rut. And you can tell Cliff's like, I'm done with this. I'm done with this rut. We're not doing this anymore. I'm not just going to settle for the same old thing. And whether it's on Sunday, they couldn't get the run game going, and so he pulled out like an old air raid. We're going to go 10 personnel, 4 wide receivers, 1 tight end, or 1 running back, no tight ends. We're going to spread the field out, get all these defenders out of here, and try this running thing. Or we're going to try the quarterback trap. We're going to try this. We're going to try that. We're going to try a trick play. Like, he's just at times like, in a way that I think a lot of us who play like Madden can relate to. You just go like, I'm sick of this. I'm going to try something else. I'm going to make it happen. Except for he does it with a knowledge and an understanding and a control that actually makes it productive. And often he gets them out of those ruts. And I just really, really appreciate that about Cliff. And it is something that has shown up a ton this year. And it was cool to hear Dan say that basically exact same thing out loud.
Number 2.
Now, Cliff needs to figure out the running game. It obviously was not very good on Sunday, and here was Dan Quinn talking about why it was not very good on Sunday.
Yeah, in fact, we had that same discussion today, Nikki, and I think going into it, I had this talk with the guys. We've got a smart crew, and so the pass protection, the blitz pickups, I think is good. I said, I want to make sure, don't miss the aggressive part of it. Of thinking to this, what could happen here, what could happen there. Like, let's make sure we're sprinting off the ball into our contact. And so that was the message I wanted to give, because these are sharp guys. If this guy aligns here, do we want to check to this guy? I said, sometimes guys make the mistake, make it full speed. If they do something different, that's okay. And so I want to make sure that's what we see this weekend, just that type of commitment off the ball. They're tough, they're physical. I said, don't overthink this thing, man. Like, we all have a tendency in anything to do that. Let's make sure like they feel our pads, our physicality, and that to me was as much as anything. We've got a good scheme. We know how to run. We use the quarterback. We carry out fakes. It's difficult. Don't miss the top of the pile. That's the effort and the finishing and the hitting. And so like, this is not to be taken too scientifically. Let's make sure, we follow our pads in this.
I love that from DQ, because there is a lot of good stuff in this run game. And I do think that there's some schematic stuff they probably could unwrap. But it's just hard because of Jayden. Like when you have to factor the quarterback in, the run scheme should do enough if you execute it at a high level, and they just haven't been able to get the movement off the ball. And look, there was just bear fights between Cosmi and Jalen Carter and Biotish on Sunday. Like Jalen Carter is just absurd to try to deal with. So the good news is you don't have him. The bad news is you got a guy like Grady Jarrett who's been bear fighting people for 14 years or whatever it's been in the NFL. So it is a tall task again on Sunday, though not, I don't think, nearly as tall as it was for the Commanders against the number one defense in the league, of course, against the Eagles.
Number 3.
Of course, getting guys back helps your offense and your defense. Let's start off with Austin Eckler. Dan Quinn, is there a possibility that Austin Eckler comes back this season?
Absolutely possible. Yeah. So Austin is definitely trending in the right way. Workouts going great. He's in meetings. He's doing all the stuff with us. So yeah, we're certainly optimistic, and we'll just play the whole thing out. But like you said, this is the earliest that he could be would begin next week. But it's been encouraging to see the progress that he's made.
One, on a human level, great to hear, because holy crap, that was a scary scene when he went down in that game against Dallas on the late kickoff return. Just an absolutely, really scary thing on its face, and then his concussion history. So the fact that he's made this kind of progress, and this is even on the table, I think, is a great sign, and obviously would be very helpful for the offense if they can get him back. Now, what happens if John Allen is ready to go this week, which he very well might be? DQ asked that directly today.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to it because we know the caliber of John, what he can bring. And so anytime you can add a player of his caliber to it, pass rush, just experience also. He's strong, he's tough. So when that does happen, that'll be something that will definitely, bring energy to our defense as well. Much like we, kind of added Marshawn into that space as well, where you just add guys into it. Different for John because he was here, but the same effect in a lot of ways.
I really don't know what they do because, a guy like Carl Davis has been really good. Sheldon Day's been sensational. I would guess that Davis probably stays down on the practice squad, and they just sub John Allen in, and Fedarian Mathis gets cut, and that's the end of that. And then what do they do from a package standpoint? That is really the question. They could certainly just give the Carl Davis snaps to John, and he's not going to be a starter, and they let him work in this week, and then depending on how it goes, you up his snaps significantly and make him a starter again. I also think you probably take some of Jer'Zhan Newton's snaps away because the rookie has struggled in certain situations. It's fine. He's a rookie. He's also thrived in certain situations. So just can you better get those guys set up for success based off what they do really well? I think John Allen adding to your rotation is a great thing at this time of the year, but it is going to be a bit of a challenge to kind of figure out which pieces mix and match together. But again, a good problem to have. All right, continuing on, our pick 6 at 6.
Number 4.
Number 4, Dan Quinn also talked today about the leadership on the team, and I thought this was really, really good. It's a long quote from DQ, a long soundbite here, but there's lots of swearing. So there's Dan's birthday gift to you. We had to bleep it because otherwise we get in trouble. But DQ was asked about the leadership on this team and the approach of giving Jayden Daniels not the keys to the kingdom immediately, but making him earn it, if you will, over time.
Well, first, it's what we stand for. If we're going to have competition as the central theme of the program, then I think it would be counterproductive to say everybody else compete, but you've already got it. I think that would be the wrong message to send when you're trying to establish, some standards that you want to do as a program that's developing. It did it by his work first, and then after that, I think the moments in the game, the guys just, came to lean on him, trust on him, knowing that he does what he says he's going to do. Not to say that every, game is perfect, but they have a lot of belief in him. And I think belief's a really powerful thing because it's that bridge that goes from the gap that says wanting to win to knowing you're going to win. And that's powerful. And so I think Jayden helped that bridge where you're hopeful, you want to we're going to. And so if you've ever been on a team that you're going to, man, that feels a lot different. And so his confidence is a big part of that, and his humility is a big part of that because of all the accolades and the things and the attention that he gets. He's deferral. He doesn't do that. And I think the players recognize that as well. Early on, I was worried about, as much as you guys would talk about him and watch him at practice, I said, we could have the other 70 guys doing something else. They wouldn't even know. But I also knew, when I found out, this is a pretty special guy. You know, he already came in with a very mature sense about him. He'd been through some good, strong life experiences, but it was the humility and confidence that probably separated himself to be able to lead. Because I think if you do it beforehand, it's not authentic. If you anoint somebody as a leader and they're not, it's. And so the players know that. These guys have been their whole life as great players coming up, and so they see through it way faster than anybody else. So if I had done that to them, they said, man, you're not real. And so I wanted to make sure that I stay consistent with that too. And so, but I also don't want to not allow him to fully develop into a leader. He is now. So there's no need for me to guard him from any of that. Like, they trust him. They have belief in him.
I love it. I love it. I love making him earn it and letting it happen naturally. It's not really making him earn it. It's just being like, hey, man, you're on the team. You don't need to do anything crazy. You don't need to call up the guys and assert your dominance early because Bobby Wagner's going to be like, kid, you just got here. Sit down. And over the course of time, he's earned that leadership. And now he and Mikey Sanders still, Dan talked about him in a different bite, are full-fledged leaders on this team. And they're the future, and that's great. But they also know their place right now, which is probably somewhere behind Bobby Wagner. But I don't know how many other people besides Bobby and really like Terry McLaurin, maybe Zach Ertz. He's not as vocal, but Zach, how many guys are really ahead of those two, Mikey and Jayden, in line, which is part of the reason they were drafted on top of the excellence that they were going to provide on the field.
Number 5.
Jayden drafted number 2 overall this weekend. He will square off, and the team will square off more aptly against the number 8 overall pick, Michael Penix, who Jayden trained with. You'll hear from Daniels on Penix in a moment, but first, DQ on what he saw from Michael Penix in the draft process.
I think coming into it, Candy, through the draft process, he was actually here and had a visit with us during the spring as well. You found out this is a rare competitor. We knew his path, from college to Indiana and out to UW, and he had just a fantastic year. Even though they lost, I would say the game against Michigan, where he just stood in and over, I thought, man, is this guy tough. Like, we hadn't even looked at him yet, but it captured me into that spot. And so going into the whole process, you knew this was a talented guy. He could deliver, he could process quickly. And so his way of playing is different than our way of playing, where, we move Jayden a lot to do that, where Michael's more in the traditional way, strong arm, can rip it to anywhere. So those were the things, we saw in the draft process. And then limited stuff during the preseason. We saw some, and then, a full-on game last week, and you saw that arm talent and the strength come through full-on.
So there is Quinn on Penix, who will be under center for Atlanta on Sunday Night Football this weekend, preparing for this moment in the offseason with none other, or at least the draft, with none other than Jayden Daniels, who we got to know quite well. And Jayden quite enjoyed his time with Michael Penix.
One, he's just cool. A cool individual, one of the guys, really down to earth, humble, super funny. But for him, man, I think it kind of went viral last year, but he really likes to rap. He freestyles off the top of his head. So just being around him, on basically all the last year, from before our season, started in college to pre-draft and stuff like that. So we just built that bond over that time.
Cool stuff there. So it should be fun. It's Penix's first big test. I'm excited to dive into the tape a little bit tomorrow and then preview it with Logan on Thursday on Take Command. Of course, we'll let you hear our thoughts on Michael Penix on this here show as well. And last but not least,
number 6.
Merry Christmas, everybody. It's every reporter's favorite time of year. Time to ask the quarterback what they got their offensive line for Christmas.
Some scooters. It's coming out soon. Got him some electric scooters, so I don't have to walk around as much.
Hey, that O-line, Anthony, is banged up right now. That's a practical gift. Practical gifts are overrated. You use them, which makes them good gifts.
Very good gift.
Now, Jayden's done well for himself. Good, solid rookie contract, being the number 2 pick. He obviously did quite well on NIL deals in college. He hasn't made as much money as Russell Wilson in his career, though. Russ, this is what he got his offensive lineman. Adam Schefter tweeted this out. Although I should give credit to probably like Brooke Pryor and Steelers and whoever else tweeted this out. Russell Wilson gifted his offensive lineman a $10,000 Airbnb gift card that can be used anywhere around the globe, a Louis Vuitton duffel bag in Steelers colors, a custom-made Steelers Goodman brand shoes, that is Wilson's premium men's clothing brand, and then a bottle of 10-to-1 rum, which is his wife Sierra's brand.
Hey, bro, let me hold $1, bro. Like, what's up?
You want to know who the offensive lineman can thank for that?
Who?
The Denver Broncos. And Sierra and Russ.
Yeah, they still paying him, huh?
They paid him so much money.
Good gracious.
I mean, Seattle paid him a lot of money. Denver also paid him a lot of money. Seattle got their money's worth. Denver has an $87 million, I think it is, cap hit. And that's the Pick 6 at 6. Coming up next, Competition Wednesday. Of course, we're out tomorrow, so Competition Wednesday on a Tuesday. So Anthony and I'll go head-to-head, but first let's get an update on the latest in the world of women's sports, presented by Wawa. Chicken how you want at Wawa with customizable, crispy, or roasted chicken sandwiches. You didn't think I had that good of a DMX, did you?
I did not.
You know what's also really funny?
What?
None of these songs are playing on the YouTube stream. So I just randomly, to people that are watching on YouTube, was screaming like DMX. Those on the radio know. We're currently playing the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer DMX version. Although this is not the original. Like the original was just like him freestyling at a radio station.
Yeah.
And then eventually they like fully produced the thing.
Yeah.
Can it go down in history?
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Ha!
That was deep. It wasn't DMX.
Yeah.
What?
What?
All right, it's the Hoffman Show. It's the final 25 minutes of the Hoffman Show before we break for the holidays. It's a very short break. We're back on Thursday, but we got tomorrow off, which means, Dan Quinn, we were trying to decide what we were going to do with our competition Wednesday. And it's like, hey, I don't know, do we do it Thursday? Do we do it today? And then Dan Quinn got to the podium today for the Commanders and said this.
So today, for us, is like a Wednesday, our competition Wednesday. And then we just flip tomorrow.
So, Anthony, I think that means it's time.
It's time
for Competition Wednesday. If you are new to the show / you've never heard of Competition Wednesday, on Wednesdays, typically at 5:30, Anthony and I pick 3 games apiece against the spread, not the same game. We pick one game that's the same game as a tiebreaker just in case we tie. The loser typically spins what we call the Wheel of Mediocre Punishment, which is a wheel, game show style, that has a lot of mediocre punishments on it. This week, however, we are not going to spin the wheel because we have predetermined the mediocre punishment, which hopefully won't be that much of a punishment because we're going to rely on the fact that there are some very good tailgate chefs out there, as Anthony and I are going to be perusing the parking lots at Northwest Stadium ahead of Sunday Night Football, vlogging, which will be fun. So this will wind up on the internet. But we've had a hot wings, like medium hot wings, because it's a mediocre punishment wheel, on the wheel all season long. It's never been spun. So we would like someone to invite us to their tailgate. Let us eat your hot wings that are hot enough to be uncomfortable, but not hot enough to ruin our night. And the loser's going to have to do that. I'm low-key excited for this potentially to happen. Anthony is terrified, which is the reversal of like the costume show where Anthony was low-key excited and I hate dressing up. So that was bad for me. Anthony was like, this is actually kind of fun. Yeah. I'm kind of up for a challenge as long as the taste is good and it doesn't ruin my night.
Habanero.
Could be. All right. So without further ado, Anthony, how's your confidence going into the reveal of who won Competition Wednesday this week?
I'm feeling pretty confident, actually, Craig.
Are you?
Because I think the Commanders was one of my picks.
I think you're correct. Now, Anthony has not won in a while.
A very long time.
I think it was, what was it? Nope, not there. I think it was week 14 you won.
Nah, that's too recent.
No, that's true. I think it was nope, I went 3-0 that week.
Like week 11 or 10.
I think it was week 11. It was week 11.
A long time.
So the last time that Anthony won was when the Commanders lost to the Eagles. Fast forward, week 16 / week 17, as we reveal here. Anthony, the first game of the day for you was the Detroit Lions against
the Chicago Bears.
Against the Chicago Bears. Why is that on that line? Where was this line? It was Detroit minus 6.5 was the line. Things got messed around in the spreadsheet. But Detroit minus 6.5 was, I know why. Because I'm looking at the wrong week. It was the right picks, but the wrong weeks. Okay. Detroit minus 6.5 was the line by the time you picked it. The Lions beat the ever-living crap out of the Bears. So you, sir, are 1-0.
Let's go.
My first game was the Minnesota Vikings against the Seattle Seahawks. Now, this game, by the time we picked it, was a 3-point line. It was 4 earlier in the week. It wound up being 3 by the time I got a hold of it last Wednesday. And that is our first, I believe, push of the season. It wound up being a 3-point game. Your second game, Anthony, was the Cincinnati Bengals minus 7.5 against the Cleveland Browns. Big number, division game, typically a bad thing. Except for if Dorian Thompson-Robinson is playing quarterback for the other team. They won 24-6. Anthony, you are 2-0.
Let's go! I won, Craig! Let's go!
You actually didn't have the Commanders as your other game, though.
Win?
You didn't have the Commanders as your other game.
Thought I did. No!
Sit down.
Okay.
For just a moment. I promise I need you to just chill for just a moment. I decided to pick a terrible football game. Jacksonville, Las Vegas. Jacksonville was 1.5-point dogs by the time I got a hold of them. Anthony, they lost by 4. Congratulations. You have already locked up Competition Wednesday for this week.
Great! Let's go! Finally, hey, it's been a long time coming.
It has?
It's bringing tears to my eyes, Craig.
I'm probably going to have tears in my eyes when I eat these hot wings.
Oh, my God.
Finally. And if that
5
wasn't
weeks to get
bad
out the
enough,
snide, man.
when it rains, it pours for me. Anthony, your final game was not the Commanders. Your final game was your Indianapolis Colts minus 3.5, which also gives you a 3-0 week. And my dumb ass picked the Bucks to beat the Falcons. Anthony, I am winless this week. I am 0-2-1. You went 3-0. I did have the tiebreaker for whatever that's worth. I picked Carolina, but that really doesn't help me. You had Arizona in that game. Doesn't matter. Anthony Haney, boys and girls, has finally won a Competition Wednesday.
I did it.
The streak is over.
I did it, man. I did it.
You did. Congratulations, sir. Congratulations.
So you got to eat some wings this weekend, sir.
So I will eat some wings. We need you to tell us, you out there in internet and radio land, to tell us where to go. So I need y'all to hit me up at hoffmanshow.com. There's a contact page, and you can say, hey, we're going to be in this lot. Anthony and I will come find you, and we will. You can feed me hot wings. I just ask because I have a dairy allergy to let me know if I'm going to get in trouble there. Like, don't make me sick. Just let me eat your hot wings. So that is something I will ask. But yeah, hoffmanshow.com, Instagram, at hoffman.sports. There's ways that you can get in touch to let us know where you're tailgating. One, we want to come hang out. It'd be really great to say hi to a bunch of listeners towards the end here of a phenomenal season. And I've gotten a lot of really nice notes this week through the holiday season. Really nice calls earlier in the show. So we appreciate you guys so much. And now you have a chance to scorch my taste buds. So let us know where you're tailgating if you want us to come through. Hot wings or not. We're looking for tailgates, period, but especially if you have the hot wings. I got to find some to eat on Sunday. But I will say, it better taste good, because if your wings taste like crap, we are vlogging this, and I will say your wings taste awful. But I know we got some proud chefs out there, Anthony.
We do indeed, and I'm going to have to put in a special order with a couple of the chefs I know around D.C.
Oh.
Need to get some of these wings.
Okay. All right. So that is coming up on Sunday. When we get back, we wrap up the Hoffman Show with our picks for Week 17's edition of Competition Wednesday. Oh, you knew Mariah would bring us home. It's the Hoffman Show wrapping up here on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And we have picks to make to wrap things up here on a Tuesday edition of Competition Wednesday. Anthony has succeeded in finally getting a win. First time since week 11. So, time for me to start a new streak, Ant. Let's get to it.
Hey.
What?
A new streak of losing.
This is how competition works, bro. I gotta get back in. You think I'm just gonna give up? No. I love to compete. Let's put it back on the line again. Wheel of Mediocre Punishment returns next week. What's up? All right. Remember how to go first?
Oh, I forgot. Sir, for my first game, I think I want to start with one of the games tomorrow, actually.
I was thinking about one of the games tomorrow.
I think I'm going to go with the 4:30 game on Netflix, Ravens-Texans. Texans have been struggling, man. Offensively, they have just been a little inept. The run game hasn't gotten going. CJ sort of kind of, was inconsistent last week, I should say. And the Ravens offense has been humming. So I think I'm going to go with the Ravens 5.5 favorites tomorrow over the Texans.
I think that's the direction I would have gone as well. That's a good one. I like that. I'm going to do something absolutely against. I'm going to do actually a couple of things that are completely against my nature, I think, in this segment. The first one I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a stinky fish on the sucker side of it on Thursday Night Football. But the Chicago Bears are awful. And the Seattle Seahawks are not awful. The Seattle Seahawks have problems, but they're not awful. The Bears are awful. There's not supposed to be like crazy weather that I know about. Like, the Seahawks are going on the road to Chicago, and they're only 3.5-point favorites. Give me Seattle. I know I'm the sucker here. I'm going to feel like a moron next week. I'm doing it anyway.
I'm proud of you, Craig.
For being a moron. Yes. All right. Next game.
For game number 2, I'm going to go. This is we got some big numbers on this board. But I think I'm going to go Giants. No, I'm going to take the Colts -8 over the Giants. Really big number. The Giants stink, though. And the Colts defense has been low-key turning teams over. They've had 3 interceptions the last 2 games. I'm going with the Colts. I think they beat the mess out of the Giants.
I don't hate this. This game has already moved a little bit. It's already moved to 0.5 point from where it was earlier in the week. But I'm not going to say there's no point spread where I wouldn't bet against the Giants right now, but they are getting on that side of things. Okay. Next up, Anthony. What's the number one rule for me?
Bet against the Jets or bet against the Browns. One of them.
Bet against the Jets. That has become the number one rule. So as they go to Buffalo.
No way you're doing
a team
this,
that I love. A team that I have faith to beat the crap out of a lot of people. I am taking the Jets +10.
Oh.
6.5. That's it. That's Competition Wednesday on a Tuesday because Dan Quinn said so, / we wanted to pick before the Netflix games tomorrow. Enjoy those. Enjoy the basketball if that is what you're going to watch. Enjoy your family. Remember, it's about more than just a day off to watch sports. Enjoy everything. A note of gratitude. I have 5 seconds left. Thank you all for listening. It means a lot. We'll be back on Thursday for another edition of The Hoffman Show.